Welcome to this segment of the Black Madonna Speaks with me, your host, Stephanie Georgiev. I'm also the author of the Black Madonna Mysterious Soul Companion. At the end of our time together, I will give you information on how you too can obtain a copy of this labor of love in any format you can imagine. Today's segment is on St Helen, the Knights Templar, and the Black Madonna. The liturgical year and cycle of feast days in both Catholic and Orthodox traditions is full of every sort of festival one can imagine. One of the feast days in the Catholic tradition in September is of great interest in our study and understanding of the Black Madonna. On September 14th, one of the 7 great feast days or festivals of the Church is celebrated. Depending on one's creed, it is called anything from the exaltation of the cross or the uncovering of the cross. The essence of this festival is the recognition that St Helen discovered and restored the cross where Christ had been crucified. St Helen, the mother of the Emperor Constantine, is also referred to as St Helen of the Cross. As I studied the origins of the Black Madonna, I found that other than the evangelist Luke, the images did not have artists associated with them. What I learned is that all of the Black Madonnas have interesting and, in my opinion, very symbolic stories of discovery. Another fascinating association I discovered regarding the Black Madonnas is that they often have a correlation with ancient sites of worship that have changed hands, so to speak, throughout the centuries. As you've heard me say in many of my videos and also have read in my book, the Black Madonna Mysterious Soul Companion is that many of these works of art emigrated, so to speak, from North Africa and the Holy Land. The later migrations of these works of art were due to the Knights Templar and the Crusaders. The earlier migrations of the Black Madonnas happened when Coptic monks from North Africa started to evangelize the European continent. Another pattern that is shared by some of the more famous Black Madonnas, such as the one you're looking at now, Our Lady of Czestochowa, and we also see this in the Black Madonna of Einsiedeln in Montserrat. We hear that how these images came to the continent was through St Helen of the Cross, who discovered them in Palestine on her pilgrimage. For those of you who went to a school or a church that was either called the Holy Cross or Constantine and Helen, you're quite familiar with the story of Helen and her namesake. This beautiful image is from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. As we will start to discover together, her story is quite profound when it comes not only to the Black Madonna, but the traditions of art within Christendom, and also of how the mysteries have evolved since the beginning of time. We're also going to learn that one of the links between this evolution of the mysteries and Helen and the Black Madonna involve my personal favorite medieval order of knights, the much maligned and misunderstood Knights Templar. Helen is a fascinating character in the evolution of Christianity in Europe. She was a consort to the Emperor Constantinus, and later she became the mother of Constantine the Great, arguably one of history's most influential emperors of the Roman era. Christian was Helen's original tradition. So she was a Christian in her own right and rose to great prominence when Constantine became emperor. In fact, when he was crowned emperor, instead of his own empress, his own wife, he had his mother crowned as Empress Dowager, and they ruled together. In the Eastern Church, icons and frescoes are quite ubiquitous when it comes to Helen and Constantine. When I gave my talks in Ohrid, Macedonia last summer, I covered Constantine to a great extent. And if you're interested in receiving a copy of those lectures, please let me know and we'll figure out how to get those to you. But suffice to say, Constantine is quite a complex character and much more imperfect and full of faults than we are led to believe. While he was instrumental in helping to alleviate the persecutions of Christians during his reign, it really was his mother, Helen, that had a more benevolent approach to Christianity as a path to enlightenment. Constantine fell under the spell, so to speak, of palace gossip that had slandered his wife and his heir to the throne. He had both of them assassinated, even though they were innocent of the gossip that surrounded them. To say that Helen was distraught is an understatement. Legend tells us that she was one of the influences that had led Constantine to create the Edict of Milan, proclaiming the official tolerance of Christianity as a cult in the Roman Empire. While he initiated the toleration legislatively, Constantine actually did not embrace the young religion for a while. His mother was convinced his soul was at stake and decided, after she had a very prophetic dream, that the only way to atone for his sin was for her to take a pilgrimage to the Holy Land and obtain the relics of Christ's Passion, as well as locate the places where all the events of Christ's ministry and passion took place. We are told that Helen, at the tender age of 80, embarked on her pilgrimage, armed with an entourage of servants, an official imperial edict, and quite a bit of money. The legend states that it was a combination of dreams, working with local officials, and the Gospels that led her to all the places we now associate with Jesus Christ in Jerusalem and Bethlehem. All of the churches that are still standing today were constructed upon her insights and patronage. Working with local archivists for Jerusalem, she located what was considered a garbage dump. Her servants dug deep below the surface and found the 3 crosses of Golgotha, a crown of thorns, nails, and a sign that was nailed above Christ's head during the crucifixion. What I find interesting about Helen is that she was, in essence, one of the first patrons of the Christian arts. Churches were built as a result of her efforts and direction. She is also credited with bringing many Black Madonnas back with her when she returned to Europe. She was able to give these works of art to Constantine and then to distribute some of the works of art to noble families who were responsible for bringing the works to the continent. And in this slide, we see the 3 main churches: the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Mount of Olives, and the Church of the Nativity, that were all built according to her visions and her direction. So when she brought her works of art back to the continent, they were given to noble families of the time, and these families in turn had the images in their private collections or gave them to their favorite monasteries or bishops of their local regions. This is how the famous Black Madonnas of Czestochowa, Montserrat, and Einsiedeln made their way to Europe. For me, it is an interesting connection between art as a spiritual expression and Christianity. That a woman was involved in this process, specifically Helen, of the famous Helen and Constantine, is also remarkable and worthy of attention. The Black Madonnas have quite a profound relationship to the Knights Templar. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, who gave the Templars their order and advocated on their behalf through the Vatican and the Pope, had his conversion experience at the foot of the Black Madonna in his childhood parish church. The original 9 knights who made up the Templars settled in Jerusalem at the Dome of the Rock, which was also thought to have been part of Solomon's temple. The knights were said to have excavated under the temple, and Rudolf Steiner tells us through his many lectures on the Templars that they held Grail initiations at the depth of the temple. The knights had an affinity for Mary Magdalene and are also credited with bringing many of the Black Madonna images to Europe with them when they returned from their sojourn and also from the Crusades. According to both Steiner's research and author Manfred Schmidt-Brabant, in a lecture entitled The Mission of the Templars as Emissary of the Holy Grail, there are very interesting correlations between the Templars, Jerusalem, and the Camino. In these writings, the Templars' evolution throughout history is observed. Steiner states that the individualities that became the Templars had incarnations during the Egyptian period and were involved in the Isis cult. It was during this period that these individualities also learned of Starwism. After this incarnation in Egypt, the individualities that would eventually become the Templars witnessed from across the threshold the events surrounding the Queen of Sheba. Later, the individualities who became the Templars were involved in a Greek incarnation where they were schooled in the Pythagorean Mysteries. For those of us lay people who've not been initiated into these mysteries, the Pythagorean Mysteries involve mathematics and geometry as revelations of universal truth. When we advance to the time of Templars in Europe from 1118 through 1307, there was an absolute explosion of building on the continent. It was the time of the Gothic cathedrals. And if you ever have the joy to visit one of these or to study the architecture, you will see that sacred geometry definitely rules the day. And something not everybody always appreciates is that the Templars were behind these building initiatives where such principles were applied. Now, during the time of the Templars, as we said, it was the time of Gothic cathedrals and also the time of the Black Madonna. While in Jerusalem, the Templars studied with the Dionysian monks of the area and also with the mystical sects of Islam, and learned quite a bit from both of these in terms of architecture and philosophy. A leading context for both the Templars and the high Christian initiates of the mystery schools in the great cathedrals of the day was that how the universe was changing. The universe was changing from the age of wisdom, meaning it was an age of ideas, thinking, and wisdom of the cosmos permeating all existence. This was coming to an end, and there was a new age on the horizon. And this was to be the age of love, a cosmos of love. The interesting thing, which is also a bit daunting when you think of it, is that a cosmos of love is and will be the task of humanity. We are to choose love in freedom, to construct a cosmic universe of love. The Templars knew this, and they tried to create cultural initiatives in order to foster the creation of a culture based on love and freedom. The Templars knew the only way to invite people into a culture of love through freedom was through the arts. And did they ever invite people through the arts? During their nearly 200-year tenure, the Templars were one of the greatest organizing forces on the European continent, even more so than the monarchies and the church. They were great patrons of the arts. They created schools. They supported guilds, and one of the largest building campaigns ever in the history of humanity. In addition to their support and initiation of artistic impulses, the Templars put the Black Madonnas all along the Camino. When you look at many of these Black Madonnas, they look quite ancient, and many art historians point to the similarity they have with Isis statues, which you can see in this slide. I find it remarkable that when one considers the Templars commencing with excavations in Jerusalem, living and working with monks and Muslims of the area, they of course were aware and probably visited ancient churches that Helen of the Cross had founded. Some scholars theorize that the Templars were looking for the Ark of the Covenant. There's credible evidence that their search led them to Aksum in Ethiopia, where the Ark is fabled to reside. Other scholars theorize the Templars were searching for Sophia, or wisdom, and performed Sophianic rituals in Solomon's temple. I also find it remarkable if one lends credence to their past incarnations involving Isis cults, learning star wisdom, and being schooled in Pythagorean Mysteries, how these incarnations influenced their lives and actions during the High Middle Ages. Was their contact with Jerusalem and the churches of Helen of the Cross did that influence their devotion to the Black Madonna? Why did they place these images along the Camino, which is also known as the Way of the Stars? Did one of the original patrons of the arts, St Helen, inspire the Templars to take her initiative to the next level? All of these are interesting threads I feel are connected somehow. I hope to find out more in the months to come. If you have any ideas on the subject, please leave them in your comments below. If you would like to witness in person some of these amazing shrines along the Camino, please consider joining me on the Journey of the Soul with the Black Madonna pilgrimage in the summer of 2019. You can come in person, you can join a retreat for a few days, you can walk for a week or walk for months. Or you can also join in spirit online with the Spirit Walker options. I have left links in the comments below for the Camino pilgrimage as well as the Spirit Walker option. Please consider becoming a patron of this channel. I have special patron-only benefits and will start a live stream discussion group for such patrons in January of 2019. If you would like a copy of my book, The Black Madonna Mysterious Soul Companion, please visit my book launch page, and the link is also below, or order directly through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, or Audible. For those of you listening in the United Kingdom, Ireland, or down under in Australia and New Zealand, my book is also available through the Book Depository. I would be so honored if you would subscribe to this channel, if you would like the Heart of the Black Madonna on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter at BLMadonna. And for those of you who like to read, please consider subscribing to the Heart of the Black Madonna on Blogspot. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I know how valuable your time is, and I'm honored that I was able to share with you. And blessings on your journey.